Hello and welcome to What the F*** Just Happened Today, your essential guide to the daily shock and awe in national politics. I'm Joe Amditis. Let's get to it. It's Wednesday, November 1st, 2023. Welcome to day 1016. The Rafah border crossing opened for the first time since Israel imposed a siege against the Gaza Strip, allowing for up to 500 foreign nationals and seriously injured Palestinian civilians one day to enter into Egypt. Dozens of Palestinians were wounded during an Israeli airstrike on Jabalia, the most populous refugee camp in the region. It was the third strike on the camp in 24 hours. The UN Human Rights Office expressed concern that the airstrikes could amount to war crimes. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres added that he's appalled over the escalating violence in Gaza, including the killing of civilians by Israeli airstrikes on the refugee camp. And he reiterated that all parties must abide by international law, international humanitarian law, including the principles of distinction, proportionality, and precaution. Meanwhile, Gaza's more than 2 million residents faced another communication blackout, the second major outage in 5 days, after a complete interruption of internet and phone service. Communication services are gradually being restored. The Biden administration reportedly believes that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's political future may only last a matter of months due to growing international opposition to the Israeli military incursion against Gaza and anger over the failures of Israel's intelligence community to prevent the October 7th attack. Netanyahu, on the other hand, vowed to press on with the military campaign against Gaza, saying, "We are in a difficult war. It will also be a long war. We have important achievements, but also painful losses." Meanwhile, the House Republican plan to fund $14 billion in emergency aid for Israel with cuts to the IRS would end up costing taxpayers $26 billion over 10 years, this according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. By giving Israel $14 billion and then cutting $14 billion from the IRS budget, the package would add $12.5 billion to the deficit through 2023, but would result in $26.8 billion in lost tax revenue over the next 10 years. The commissioner of the IRS said the price tag of the Republican plan could be even larger than the CBO's estimate, saying this type of cut over the cost of the Inflation Reduction Act would actually cost taxpayers $90 billion. That's with a B. Biden's Inflation Reduction Act included $80 billion to modernize the IRS and improve tax collection and enforcement, which the CBO estimated at the time would cut the deficit by more than $100 billion. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve left interest rates unchanged at a 22-year high for the second straight policy meeting in a row. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell signaled that rates would remain high into next year to keep inflation moving down, and hinted that future rate hikes were possible. Rates have been between 5.25 to 5.5% since July, up from near zero in March 2022, despite the fact that inflation continues to fall after hitting a 4-decade high last summer of more than 9%. Moving on, the Biden administration plans to build 3 large electrical transmission lines across 6 states to upgrade the nation's power grid so it can better handle more renewable energy as well as extreme weather. The lines will be built with money from the bipartisan infrastructure law and will span from Arizona to New Mexico, Nevada to Utah, and through Vermont and New Hampshire and into Canada. Together, the 3 transmission lines will add 3.5 gigawatts of additional electrical capacity to the grid, enough to power about 3 million homes and create roughly 13,000 new jobs. However, the Energy Department said the U.S. needs to expand its transmission line network by 2/3 or more to meet Biden's goal of 100% clean energy generation by 2035. And finally, infant mortality rates in the United States increased by 3% last year, the largest jump in 2 decades. The national rate rose to 5.6 infant deaths per 1,000 live births in 2022, up from 5.44 per 1,000 the year before, this according to the CDC. While the numerical increase might seem small, it marks the first statistically significant jump since the rate rose from 6.8 deaths per 1,000 in 2001 to 7 deaths per 1,000 in 2002. The U.S. infant mortality rate is double that of most developed countries. That's all for now. You can find the links and sources for all of these stories on the main website. And as always, visit whatthefuckjusthappenedtoday.com for the latest news and headlines. Until next time, I'm Joe Amditis.